Hello, welcome to the February 5th Octant community meeting. Welcome everybody. We got some good stuff on the agenda today. We're going to be talking about some bug fixes. I'll let Sam talk about some of the action stuff that we recently worked on, and we'll give folks some updates on our move to Angular 9 and some movement on the Electron app side of things, as well as some movement on the plugin side of things. So first, I will just start with the O.10.1 release. So that was a release that we made that, I believe, a week ago, and or 6 days ago, right there on the screen. So 6 days ago, this got released. A host of bug fixes around some various issues, some Windows fixes, some API cluster. There was some issues where the API would be kind of spammed if you lost credentials and things like that. So we got that in there. We also fixed some type of the thank you to, I don't know how to say that GitHub username, but thank you to that person who fixed the typo on our Go module. That was causing the Go install of our build script to not work. So that's very appreciated. And then just some other minor fixes that y'all can see in the list there. So some race condition stuff fixed up by Sam, and Brian addressed some of the issues around reloading kube configs when there's changes. So that was a pretty successful bug fix release. I don't think we'll do another bug fix release in O.10 unless something crazy turns up, but it's likely that we won't have another one until O.11. But that's a good time to remind folks that we do have nightly builds that get generated, so you can always check out what's currently in the repo. Let's see. The Angular 9 stuff. So yeah, we were Angular 9 is in late release candidate. I believe we talked about this at the last community meeting. So part of there's a whole process in place for Octant to be being migrated over to be running inside Electron. There's also some integration of the Monaco editor into Octant happening. It will replace the existing YAML read-only view. The current most up-to-date version of the Monaco editor wants TypeScript 3.7 plus. Angular 8 does not work with TypeScript 3.7. So we were looking at upgrading to Angular 9. We've ran into some issues with, so the front-end framework that we use for styling is the Clarity framework. It's not quite, they have an open issue, and they are working towards getting ready for the Angular 9 release, but Clarity does not fully support Angular 9 yet. So we are waiting for the next Clarity release to then continue our efforts to upgrade to Angular 9, which will then unblock us to get the latest Monaco editor in place. And so that's kind of where that's all at. It's just some dependencies blocking some things that we want to take care of. So nothing. It's just it has afforded us the time to move on to some other things, which we'll talk about after I let Sam talk about the work that was done with GitHub Actions.
Sure. So we're finally moving to GitHub Actions, and this one is going to be pretty big because for a while our CI pipeline has been split. We use something called Drone, which is a container native CI, and then we also use Circle CI because we have a separate pipeline for end-to-end testing that requires setting up a cluster in CI. And long story short, if you want to set up a kind cluster in something like inside a container, you'd have to expose the Docker host. And for a lot of these free services, they just don't let you do that. So we're fairly limited in our choices for CI pipelines, but hopefully GitHub Actions help alleviate some of this. And if you actually take a look inside our old drone configuration, we have a lot of stuff that's just packaged in parallel that could be just split out into your own pipeline, stuff like linting, stuff like checking out auto-generated code and making sure those are okay. So we're going to remove those as a separate pipeline, and we don't have to worry about it in our build and release process, and hopefully not have exceedingly long CI pipeline runtimes that if you're trying to get feedback on very quickly, it doesn't become really frustrating. And lastly, we're also going to get back caching for our CI pipelines. This is more of a VMware thing, but because all of our open source projects, they share the same sort of build credits, like for example, Circle CI, it turns out that we exceed our usage quota for having our container caches. So as a result, none of the projects can actually cache their containers right now. And so what we'll actually get back with our move to GitHub Actions is to be able to get that caching mechanism and hopefully speed up a lot more of these container download times, and hopefully just get these builds less than 2 minutes for, from basically test to build time. So we're pretty much down to rebuilding our release pipeline. So hopefully we can get that online by the end of the week and go through with a test run. You might get a ping for say, hey, we're going to try out a test release. So if you get pinged on that, no, it likely would just be a draft release, but we won't be releasing a binary for real to test this out. All right, that's it.
Thanks, Sam. So the next thing up is we've created a plugin epic with, and we've given it the project name Polychrome. This is an epic that is going to be tracking our progress towards getting the plugin system to version 1. So this kind of contains all of the pre-existing issues that have been created around plugins, feature requests, bugs, documentation issues, things like that. And we're going to start working through a lot of these in this current release cycle, and start to update some of the endpoints and make things make sure that all the components have all of the marshalling and unmarshalling features, and I think Sam addressed some of those already. I believe the logs component and there's another one. I think it was annotations are, before they were not usable within the plugins, and that's been updated and fixed. So we're kind of working on making the interfaces that are exposed to plugins consistent, making any changes there that we need to ensure that we're not exposing public properties, but wrapping things with interface methods. So that way we no longer have to break the API that you're using when you're writing plugins if we change something behind the scenes. Currently, there's like a intermixing of public properties and public interface methods. So we want to get everything moved over to interface methods. We also have some issues around how the plugin files and folders are organized, making it hard to unit test because it still requires like pulling all of Octant in. And we have done some of the initial work on moving things around and changing up how those work, but we're going to continue to kind of go through all of those and ensure that to kind of create a plugin, the only thing you need to do is just get the public package for the Octant plugins, and that you don't need all of the internal and all of the private things. So yeah, so if you're interested in plugins, this is the epic. It's 6.13 on GitHub. Please check it out. If you see something on there, or if you don't see something on there, add an issue. If you see something on there that's important to you, comment on why, or thumbs up it, or just let us know. It helps us kind of set priority as we're moving through these things.
So the plugin system here, is this will this be a part of the next release, would you say?
This is more of like an epic to track it probably over the next, I think most of the issues here will probably end up in the next release.
Mm-hmm.
But this will be a long-standing epic to kind of track it until we hit version, like until we actually say we're versioning the plugin system right now. This is V1. This
Mm-hmm.
epic is going to be used to track all of that.
Okay, sounds good.
And so are there any questions on that?
Hi, this is Ilaya.
Yes.
I am from the Spring team at VMware. Now, I have a question on this project name, Polychrome, or what does that signify?
So it's a smaller mountain in the Denali mountain chain of Alaska. There's just Brian Lyles picked Project Denali for the Electron epic, so I just followed suit and picked Project Polychrome for the plugin epic. It's basically just to give it some character and give us something to reference when we're writing up documentation, when we want to be referring to like the grand scheme of things instead of always having to specifically call out the detail of a project. We could just refer to these code names.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Also, I believe you're the one who submitted the fix for the Go module update.
That's true.
Thank you for that.
For sure, my pleasure. I'm just trying to get myself familiar with the code base. So I just encountered that accidentally.
No, that's excellent. Yeah, thank you. We really appreciate that.
Thank you.
And
I got one more question. So one of the things that we want to do for Octant is to build out a plugins page on octant.dev. Mm-hmm. So right now we have the topic Octant plugins, or Octant plugin rather, and we want to create a nice plugin page. Do you want to hold off on that until this work is done, or I mean, we already have a few existing plugins that you have created and the community members have created. I can just list those for now.
I think listing those plugins is perfectly fine. I think that's a good first step. I think likely we'll probably end up with some type of more official process for plugins and where they, how they get listed and all of that. But for now, if we just want to manually list out the ones that we know about, and then people can open issues if they desire that their plugin get listed there. So,
yeah, awesome. I'll get on that then. Thanks.
All right. In a similar kind of similar topic, but the Project Denali, which is converting Octant to an application. That is the work to get the main container for Octant to no longer be a web browser and to be Electron, which is a custom Chrome of a web browser. So Brian has started some of the initial work on that. A lot of it was just reorganizing our Angular imports, moving modules around. So when you see some of these PRs coming across that are just kind of shuffling files and making some updates, that work is just kind of to lay the foundation for the move to an Electron app. Currently, we have a PR up, which is it's about to get merged, which is the Electron app stub. We may have merged. Yeah, it is merged now. It's in master, so it'll be part of this nightly build. And so folks who are interested in trying out the kind of bleeding edge there can grab the nightly build and follow the steps that are in the port 620, the pull request 620, and be able to kind of see the initial Electron frame. It is currently it's basically just the existing Octant functionality wrapped in Electron. We haven't started the process of really going through and modifying any of the UI or components yet to be more to take advantage of what we can do with Electron. So and that includes like some changes to navigation and status bars and adding menus and things like that. So right now, this is just a frame. Both of these projects coexist, so they'll live in the repo side by side, and they can be worked on independently. That is due to the moving files around work that Brian did. So as we continue to progress on this, that epic that I mentioned, I believe it was 550. That one will continue to stay around until we have fully moved Octant over to the Electron container.
Hey, Wayne, quick question on that, and I'm asking out of ignorance per usual. So Is the intent going forward that it's going to be a standalone application as opposed to a browser-driven one?
Yes, correct.
Okay, gotcha. You would be able to tunnel your connections to your remote Kubernetes through that mechanism, through the Kubernetes connection mechanism, or is there a way that you would tunnel a connection back to that? Again, just asking out of ignorance on this one.
It would connect. If I understand the question, it's how will this new application connect to the clusters?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. So in the same way it does now. So it will still look on your path for a kubeconfig file. It will, and if it finds one, it'll just use it. It'll still be able to refresh contexts from that kubeconfig when they change, and you'll still have a context selector in the application. One of the upsides is that we will be able to provide you with a native file picker to allow you to navigate and pick files to upload. So we will be able to, in the case where there is no kubeconfig, actually be able to provide the option to just upload one, which you can technically do now in a browser, but it is not as nice of experience, especially when you get into paths that involve shared file systems mounted across networks and things like that. The browser really can sometimes have a hard time with file names and file paths and uploading those correctly. So anyway, yeah, same way it works now. Nothing there will change.
Okay, thank you. Just curious.
Yep. Is Octant expected to be working as a client application on a desktop, or can I install or have Octant application running inside a container as a web application and access it? Again, I'm not much familiar with Octant yet. But.
Yeah, so the intention is to run Octant as an application. Some folks do run Octant as an application in a container and then forward via like X forwarding or something like that. But right now it is a browser-based application. So there's a lot of folks are interested in maybe running it as a server-side thing, but it is not designed to be server-side. The way we collect information from the API and the way we've set up it to work with your kubeconfig, it's just not. It was never designed or intended to be run in the cluster, and it is not recommended because it's really not safe.
Okay, yeah, but the reason why I asked this way was that if we run the entire Octant application at my desktop, and it's going to communicate for all the network from my desktop to the cluster, so everything on wire. Whereas if I run my Octant inside the cluster, so then my Octant application itself would run inside the cluster, and it would act as an edge for the end user to connect to it. And you can have multiple users connect to the same Octant application instead of I have to install one application hitting the cluster. Or like my colleague who is going to connect to the same cluster would connect from his desktop client to the cluster. So there'll be multiple network calls involved, right? I'm trying to understand the design behind this approach.
Yeah, so the intent is that the Octant is a simple application that works with your local kubeconfig. So it has the exact same permissions that you have via your kubeconfig. If you deploy Octant into the cluster in that method, everyone who connects to it has the exact same permissions as whatever that global kubeconfig is. So since it functions in that way, there's not much difference between, and the way Octant works with informers, it uses informer cache to load data. So if you have multiple clients of Octant all using the same kubeconfig, talking to a Kubernetes server, they're all going to be hitting the same informer cache when they're loading the data. So,
okay.
So the amount of overhead really is just what it's sending back to the clients, and those clients you still have to send the data back to the clients. So yeah, it doesn't, there's probably some performance benefit to having some pieces of Octant being in cluster, but it's, again, it wasn't designed that way from the beginning. So it doesn't really lend itself to being run in that fashion. So the recommendation that we have for folks who want to run it in a way that is where it's easily distributed is to just have folks, just like any other dev tool, have folks install it locally and then share a kubeconfig via OnePass or LastPass or some type of secure file sharing tool, the same way that a lot of people share configurations, and just share the kubeconfig that you desire to connect to Octant with to all of the folks who need it.
Okay. So if I understand it correct, currently at the state of design, the Octant application, it's designed for a specific user at his or her desktop.
Yes.
Or laptop. Okay. And is it expected to work on a mobile client as well?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I run it on a Microsoft Surface that I have at my desk, and I just leave it running on there all the time. It connected to my cluster, so I can see stuff as I'm working on my main machine, and that works fine.
Okay. So how maybe I'm sorry for one more question. So here,
no, it's fine.
How is this different from what there are some other products or enterprise offerings like Tanzu Mission Control that has a management view, right? And then this Octant, and I'm trying to get the difference between Octant being the management platform and Tanzu Mission Control also being the management platform. So what is the difference between these two products, which looks similar to me from the end user?
Right. Yeah. So Octant isn't really a management platform, and I think that's the main difference. Octant is a primarily a developer-focused tool to help kind of give you some insight into what's happening with your workloads in your cluster as a developer who is changing things and working on things and trying to understand how all these things are connected. It also, again, in its nature, it just runs on a desktop, right? It doesn't run in cluster, and it doesn't have any type of multi-tenancy or anything like that. It is just your kube config on the desktop. You run it, and you see what you are allowed to see. So in that way, that is that's like the major difference of Octant. It is not it's not intended to kind of be a
does that mean it's only for developers, and does that mean I cannot use Octant application to connect to my production cluster?
So
because it's mostly developer focused.
No, you can use it to connect to your production cluster, but our current focus is really on getting developers and operators the ability to see what's happening in their clusters and understand how all of their workloads and services are functioning. Using it on a production cluster is something that people do. There's no danger in that. It's not only for dev clusters in that way, but a lot of the area of focus right now, the work we're focusing on, is making it easier for people to understand Kubernetes. And that does transfer over into production clusters as well. So one of the things, like a common pattern, is you are deploying something on your dev context and you're using Octant and you're watching it happen, and you get some errors and you kind of use Octant to debug what's going on. You fix those YAML edits and you get the resource viewer all green and happy. And then you go and deploy that to a staging cluster and you switch your context from dev to staging, and you kind of watch it in Octant to verify that things are doing the same thing. But then by the time you're using Octant over in the production side, you're probably more using it as just a simple like monitoring, like let me check on this workload, see how things are doing compared to what I was just doing with port forwards and things like that on the dev side.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one common aspect of Octant that Brian talks about a lot is troubleshooting. So you can definitely use Octant for that in any type of cluster, but yeah, Wayne explained it way deeper here.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I had a slightly off-topic question for you, Wayne.
Sure.
Was that a Chrome plugin or something you were using for epics on GitHub?
Oh, yes. So there is a ZenHub, Firefox, and Chrome extension that if you install it, you will get a ZenHub tab in GitHub, and it will allow you to view the epics all grouped and categorized together.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, and we can try to make sure we put that in the a link somewhere in the Q&A section there.
Yeah, I think
that'd be great.
Maybe we should add that to the README as well.
Great idea.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions or comments? I really appreciate everyone's questions today. All right, Sam, you got anything to add?
I'm looking at, I think there was one in progress PR from with the persistent volume claim. And I think I would just route back since he's also on the call. So if you need help on just getting the PR or just stuck somewhere, just feel free to ping for that PR.
Oh yeah, I'm stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Wayne and I we were going to chat after this. So, and if it's gonna hold you guys up, me working on this, I thought it was going to be an easy change, and it may be out of my it may not be under my fingertips to do it immediately. So if it's going to hold you guys up, you can move me off of that and take care of it, and I can try to find some other low-hanging fruit to attack as well.
I don't think it's holding us up at all. We just want to make sure that you don't feel so stuck that you're just gonna like oh, I can't do it, because I think we can, between Sam and I, we can definitely help you through it, because getting stuff and like initially kind of getting your mind into Octant and all of its corners and how it works can be a long process. So you shouldn't feel bad at all. I definitely felt the same way when I first started working on Octant.
Well, thank you. It's also the added combination of that I'm new to the team that I'm on. I'm fairly new to Kubernetes, and it's just a culmination of a lot of things, and I'm not where I want to be at the moment with it, and hopefully I can learn enough to actually get moving forward on it.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, we'll sync up after this meeting here, and we can do a Zoom, and Sam and I can, or Sam or me or both, can kind of walk you through what's going on and see if we can get it figured out.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. All right. So thank you, everybody. And
oh, that's it.
Yeah,
I just came in and you guys are gonna say goodbye.
We're done. Yeah. Do you have anything?
No, I don't have anything. I just want to say thank you all for churning very quickly the 0.10.1 release. So that was a great execution on our end, and it materially impacts one of our customers, JPMC. So so that's good, but also materially impacts more than a few folks in the community which reacted to those. So thank you for the quick turnaround. Thank you for being diligent and doing all that work. I don't have anything specific on Octant today. I'll look at the notes after that.
All right, great. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you. Bye.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.